The time has come. Here they are, our league winning picks at every position. We're going to tell you exactly who could lead you to fantasy glory in 2025. Now, of course, every position matters to some extent. I'm going to save running back and receiver for the end. Let's start with quarterback. All right. You got to make sure that you have the right guy to helm your team, right? Be the captain here. Who you got?
I got Justin Fields. Obviously, we're assuming you're not going to get one of the elite quarterbacks going early. Like, yeah, those guys are going to be great, but we're talking league winner. We're going to look a little deeper at a quarterback you can wait for. I think Justin Fields could absolutely be a league winner this year. You go back his 2 years as a starter in Chicago, he was a QB9 and a QB5 in points per game. And what was crazy about those years is he never threw for more than 2,500 yards or 17 passing touchdowns. It's because of what he does with his legs. Look at it last year. In the 6 starts he made with Pittsburgh, he averaged 38.5 rushing yards per game, had 5 rushing touchdowns in those 6 games. And the Steelers just really handcuffed him last year. They basically said to him, look, we have an elite defense, just don't lose games for us. That's not going to be the case with the Jets. Yes, the Jets do have an elite defense, but they're going to let Justin Fields throw the ball more. And they don't have anybody waiting in the wings like a Russell Wilson. This is Justin Fields' job this year. Good or bad, they are committed to Justin Fields. So we're talking about a guy who can get you 800 possible rushing yards here, potentially double-digit rushing touchdowns, which is kind of what we're looking for from those elite guys. In those later rounds, he typically goes round 8, round 9 in your fantasy drafts. So he allows you to load up at the rest of the positions, build an elite team, and still potentially get a quarterback, a cheat code quarterback with that rushing upside. Justin Fields, yes, he may not throw for 3,000 yards. He may not throw for over 20 touchdowns, but it didn't matter in Chicago. I don't think it's going to matter in New York. If he can do what he did in Chicago and maybe even be a little better, he can give you at least a top 10 season for a quarterback you're getting much later than that, maybe even a top 5 season. And if he does that, he's absolutely going to win your league.
All right, so for my quarterback pick, we're going to go a little old school. And I don't mean an old player, I mean old school style pocket passer. Rushing quarterbacks are kind of a cheat code. Everybody knows this. But that's why you could get CJ Stroud toward maybe the very end of your draft because people think he's just mediocre, right? After last year, he actually took a step back, from his rookie season where he was one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. What happened? Well, a few things happened, and it wasn't that CJ Stroud got worse necessarily. We knew that there was going to be some regression from that super low interception rate, but it was just normal, right? He actually threw some interceptions, unlike his rookie year where he basically didn't throw any. The big difference last year, they had a running game that worked. They had a workhorse in Joe Mixon, and that just took so much pressure off the passing game. CJ Stroud didn't have to throw it as much, and the defense was actually pretty good. I don't think that's happening this year because, first of all, Joe Mixon is not on the field. We don't know when he's coming back. Sorry, Nick Chubb, just, all due respect, he should probably retire. He does not look good. They don't have anybody else there. I think that running game is going to go back to being ineffective, maybe even worse than it was 2 years ago. The defense doesn't look like it's going to be any better necessarily. I think he's going to get back to that pass volume that he did 2 years ago as a rookie when he averaged 273 yards a game as opposed to 219 last year. But here's where they did upgrade on offense. Wide receiver. He might have the most talented wide receiver group that he's had in his 3 years because we know they drafted Jaden Higgins. Then they drafted Jalen Noel, 2 receivers I liked a lot coming out of Iowa State. And then they got Christian Kirk, a really reliable slot receiver. And oh yeah, they still have Nico Collins, elite receiver. He's got a lot more talent at receiver. They got a lot less talent at running back, and I really think they're going to have to pass the ball more than they want to this year. Some people will point to the fact that the Texans' offensive line isn't very good. You know what? You're right. Their offensive line isn't actually any good. And some, places have them ranked as the worst offensive line. You know what? Those same places have the Bengals ranked 31st, just ahead of them. That doesn't seem to bother Joe Burrow and his fantasy stats. So, look, I'm not worried about that so much because offensive line usually helps the running game a little bit more than the passing game. I think we're going to see Stroud going back to being a top 10, maybe even top 8. I'm not going to go crazy here, but an elite fantasy quarterback perhaps that you can get at the very end of your draft and spend your draft picks elsewhere. All right, no tight end, your very favorite position, so I'm sure you got a pretty strong league winner here.
I think I do. I think George Kittle, he kind of was a league winner last year. I think he's going to be a league winner again this year. He was technically the tight end one last year in terms of points per game, had over 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns, and what was the catalyst for his kind of like, I don't want to say a bounce back season, but for him having another very strong season? It was the fact that the 49ers had no good wide receivers. Brandon Ayuk basically missed the entire season. Deebo Samuel was out there, but was he really out there? Ricky Pearsall missed half the season. Jennings was kind of on and off the field. I mean, CMC wasn't on the field. They had to go to George Kittle. Well, guess what? They're going to have to go to George Kittle again because Brandon Ayuk sounds like he's nowhere close to returning. Who knows how healthy he's going to be this year? Deebo's gone. We know Jennings dealing with his second calf injury since OTAs already. And Ricky Pearsall, as much as I like him and as good as I think he is, we got to be honest, he's only played 8 games in the NFL here, or 9 games, whatever it is. So I think once again, George Kittle is going to be a massive part of this passing game. I think George Kittle is going to be even better than he was last year. And right now, when you look at drafts, Brock Bowers typically goes 2nd round. Trey McBride goes 3rd round. You can get George Kittle in like round 5, and I think he's going to be every bit as good or better than those guys. And if he is, he's going to be a league winner. And I really think George Kittle is going to win the triple crown of tight ends, receptions, yards, and touchdowns, and be a league winner at the position. And you don't have to take him with one of your very, very early picks.
Agree. I haven't been in on Kittle the last couple of years. I am this year now. I'm also pretty big on a Hawk maybe having his best season yet, but let's go late round potential breakout candidate. I think the Titans offense will be better than expected, right? They got Cam Ward there. His favorite target, honestly, well, it's good. It's going to be Calvin Ridley. But his next favorite target isn't going to be a receiver. It's going to be the tight end, Chig Okonkwo. They've already got some chemistry going. We've seen it since minicamp. And Okonkwo, beat reporters have said over and over again, it's like, it almost looks like a different guy. Like he's got this extra gear so far this year. He's finally got a good quarterback. Let's just face it, right? And Chig Okonkwo has always been a very athletic tight end, capable of being dynamic as a receiver, but also in fantasy, capable of putting up numbers. The offense just hasn't been good enough, and this year, I think it definitely will be good enough. Chig Okonkwo is basically not going to be drafted in most leagues. He just isn't because the Titans, of course, the worst team last year. Nobody's seen him put up big numbers ever, right? Maybe here and there have a good game, but the expectations are super low. Telling you, don't sleep on this guy. The situation is perfect here. He could be one of those guys that you pluck basically as an afterthought in your draft. People think you're punting tight end by taking him with your last pick, and you really might be getting one of the best tight ends in all of fantasy with your last round pick. Now, sometimes these breakout players, these league winners, come from teams that weren't that good last year, and that's why they become great values.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be Jakobi Meyers this year. You look at it last year, he was the wide receiver 19 on the season despite the first 3 games he had to play with Davante Adams and missing 2 games. But here's what's really interesting about last year. I found this was crazy when I looked it up. He was the only wide receiver last year who played over 15 games and averaged 9 targets per game. Technically, I think he averaged like 8.6, but basically 9 targets per game, who didn't finish as a top 15 wide receiver last year. Why? Because he had Aiden O'Connell and whoever, Gardner Minshew, Noodle Arm Minshew, whoever terrible quarterback at his quarterback position, not to mention terrible coaching. Well, guess what? Both of those have been fixed this year. We got Geno Smith. Geno Smith, the last 4 years, has been top 2 in accuracy rating every single year. And now he's reunited with Pete Carroll, the guy who rejuvenated his career. Pete Carroll, despite how old he is, seems like he's got limitless energy and is, good for an offense here. I think we're going to see the Raiders be a surprise offense. I don't think the Raiders are going to be a top 10 offense or anything, but I think they could be a better than average offense this year. And Geno Smith is a much better than average quarterback. And look what he did for Jackson Smith-Njigba last year. Helped JSN have a monster year 2 breakout. Now, this is not Jakobi Meyers' year 2. I don't even know what years he's in, 6 or 7. But this is a talented wide receiver who's just been stuck in terrible situations. But even with those terrible situations, he's been productive. I think this year he's even more productive. He takes a massive step forward. I think we see his best season ever. And I think Jakobi Meyers, based on where he's being drafted so late in drafts, is absolutely going to win your league in 2025.
All right, right in that same range. Receiver you could take is like your 4th option, perhaps. Let's go back to an elite offense. I say back, we're going to go with another 49er, Ricky Pearsall. All right, now, I totally agree with George Kittle. I think that this is the year he has possibly his best season, which is saying a lot. We don't know what Ricky Pearsall's ceiling is because we've barely seen him play, but we saw down the stretch at the end of the season when he was finally actually healthy and recovered from all his injuries, right? Serious injuries, and was actually targeted, he was an elite fantasy player. Now, I know that's a small sample. I get that. You're about to see the large sample, and you already hit on this. Brandon Ayuk, they say he's not even close to a concrete timeline. That's concerning. Juwan Jennings, who knows if he's ready for the start of the season? Oh, yeah, he wants a contract. After that, honestly, it's Kittle, but at the wide receiver group, there's not much else, right? It's a bunch of guys that you don't think deserve to necessarily be starting on NFL teams, right? Ricky Pearsall could wind up getting a ton of targets. We know he's got a ton of talent based on where he was drafted, and we know he's in the right offense. San Francisco always puts up points, but both Kittle and Pearsall could thrive, and CMC. This is the 49ers. This is the offense. They averaged the third most passing yards per game last year. There will be plenty of targets to go around, and at the wide receiver position, Ricky Pearsall might wind up leading the way by far. Get this guy, not even as a starting player in your fantasy roster when you draft, and he'll probably be starting for you all season long. All right, time for the running back position. A lot of tempting choices here. Who are you going to go with?
Well, before I reveal that, I just want to say, there are some coaches that you just know they are gold for certain positions. Like we know Kevin O'Connell is gold for quarterbacks. We know Sean McVay is gold for wide receivers. Clint Kubiak, he's gold for running backs. And this year, his running back one is Kenneth Walker. And when you look at it since 2021, Clint Kubiak's RB1 has averaged more fantasy points per game than every running back not named Christian McCaffrey. This guy is just absolutely great for the running back position. And I've talked about it many times this year. He likes to run that outside zone scheme, and that is perfect for Kenneth Walker's skill set. Last year, Kenneth Walker, 4.7 yards per carry on those outside zone runs, only 3.7 on those inside gap runs. Not to mention, Clint Kubiak is telling us what we need to know about Kenneth Walker. Recently, when asked about Kenneth Walker in this scheme, he said, and I quote, "Looking forward to him in this scheme, and we're going to ask a lot out of him." And I don't think that just means running the football. I think that means catching the football as well. Last year, this guy was 5th in route participation, had 46 catches despite only playing 11 games. I think we're going to see Kenneth Walker a true 3-down back in this Clint Kubiak offense, and it is going to absolutely unlock him kind of the way it did Alvin Kamara the last 2 years. Now, I know Alvin Kamara was great earlier in his career, but remember, he had a couple down years, and then Clint Kubiak comes into New Orleans, and what happens? Alvin Kamara suddenly finds a fountain of youth. Kenneth Walker doesn't need to find the fountain of youth, though he is still youthful. He's still very good. Last year, he led all running backs in terms of percentage of his yards after contact. He was also 5th in juke rate, 13th in evaded tackles. He's ran a 4.38 40 at his combine. He's got juice. He's got everything we're looking for in a league-winning running back. And to make it even better, you don't have to draft this guy round 1, round 2, round 3. Sometimes you can get him round 4, round 5 in your fantasy drafts. Kenneth Walker has all the makings of a league winner this year with Clint Kubiak.
All right, my running back pick is a guy that I'll admit I was not completely sold on even after the draft, but I just have to admit I think Omarion Hampton for the Chargers might be one of the best fantasy running backs all season long. Now, yes, this does have a lot to do with Najee Harris injury because I was worried not about Hampton's talent. That's never been a concern. We already know, right? We know he was drafted high for a reason. We know the numbers he put up in college. I mean, he's got a 94th percentile speed score, a guy who's super fast for his size. I mean, he can do it all. That's not the question. The question is, how is he going to be used? Is he going to be used enough to be your RB1? And now I think the answer has to be yes, because his only competition, realistic competition there, Najee Harris, who's a veteran, who's going to be involved. He's not even doing anything on the practice field other than just kind of like walking around. Okay. Omarion Hampton is going to be the lead back from week 1. And that means you're getting value out of him, not just mid-season on, not just the late. No, all season long, you have a guy who's going to run the ball a ton and can do it all. And, talk about schemes and coaches that want to run the ball. Jim Harbaugh wants to run the ball and win with defense. That's what he wants to do. And they did it for a lot of last year, and then they just couldn't because J.K. Dobbins finally broke down and got hurt, and Gus Edwards the bus just broke down, just couldn't get it done, right? Now he's got that guy he wanted, and don't be confused. He went out and got these 2 running backs in the offseason, Hampton and Harris, for a reason. And now they're down to one, at least for the time being. Last year, the Chargers were 11th most in rush attempts and 10th highest in team rush percentage. That's a little misleading, though, because out of those teams that are ahead of the Chargers, well, four of them have rushing quarterbacks who run the ball just as much as running backs, like Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Jaden Daniels. The Chargers don't have that. It's going to be all Hampton all season long. You got the volume, the situation, a pretty good offense, and he's going to be a pass catcher. He's going to be the red zone, he's going to be everything. This guy is going to do it all, and you don't have to spend a first round pick on him. All right, those are our favorite league winning picks at each position, but we got a lot more for you. Sleepers, busts, things to do, things not to do. It's all on this playlist.